Did the Sabres offense peak last year? We have a bunch of other questions that we'll be going through on the show. Before we get started, we just want to share you a short video. We're teaming up with the Punt Foundation, and take a quick look at this.
Welcome, everyone. This holiday season, Nickel City Mafia is honored to be partnered with the Punt Foundation based out of Buffalo, New York, whose mission is to provide financial and emotional support to families facing a pediatric cancer diagnosis. This is the second year in a row that Nickel City Mafia will be adopting a family for the holidays to provide additional assistance to them. The money for the family will help pay their mortgage and other things as they fight for their child's life. This year, we will be helping a single mom with 2 children. Cardell is all boy. He loves cars, trucks, dirt bikes, superheroes, sports, and the Buffalo Bills. He's the sweetest big brother and loves his little sister. In early October, Cardell was diagnosed with a stage 4 diffuse midline glioma, which is a very aggressive tumor that begins in the brain or spinal cord. In the words of his mom, Kirsten, "I am not taken. There's not much more we can do if the radiation doesn't work," as an answer. We are currently finishing radiation and working to obtain second opinions as far as treatment from St. Jude's, Mayo Clinic, a Philadelphia pediatric oncology hospital, and more. Please keep us in your continued prayers as we navigate to find the best possible care for Cardell. From all of us here at Nickel City Mafia, we ask that you please help this beautiful family in need. Donate using the link down below in the description of this show and share it with friends, family, co-workers, and social media platforms. Thank you all from the bottom of our hearts.
And, Bills Mafia, we're definitely expecting you to show up. And, Buffalo sports fan, we're such a great community here. Definitely support Cardell. We have links in the description of the show. We can also use the QR code that we have on the screen as well to take you onto the website where you can be making a donation. We're actually at 30% of our goal right now. So people are showing up. So, we're looking forward to, crushing that goal in the next couple of weeks. So definitely, do your part to help donate. Sam and I are big supporters of the Punt Foundation here too. So yeah, 'tis the season of giving. So Sam, their next holiday is coming up in Thanksgiving.
Yep.
I guess we got to discuss, what is your favorite plate at Thanksgiving?
Me personally, my family has like a very good mac and cheese. It's just rich and creamy. It's probably not anything like too special. We don't necessarily have like a propensity for like being chefs in our family, but it's good. Okay. I love it. It's just that like homely style meal, and it's great.
Yeah, of course, especially during these cold seasons. Do they do the breadcrumbs up top too?
Yeah, they got the breadcrumbs up top.
Awesome. That's the best part.
What about you? What's your favorite?
So I'm going to be pretty basic. It's got to be the stuffing, man. I mean, we actually kind of do something a little bit different though. My sister-in-law actually used this recipe for the first time, I think about like 6 years ago. We actually used cornbread. Then we also put like andouille sausage in there and some cranberries too. So it's not just like your plain Stouffer's stuffing. So it's a little bit different, but I don't mind either. I mean,
yeah,
they're both pretty filling and warm.
Right.
Awesome. So yeah, we are Sabres, so we'll get started with that, and we'll kind of go on for the next couple of the past 2 games. So we'll review the stats real quick on that. So the first game that we had was against the Jets. Unfortunately, the Sabres lost 3-2. Paterka and Tuck both had goals. Benson and Dahlin both had assists. Comrie was the goaltender in that game, so it was his first game coming back from injury. He had 18 shots against with 3 goals, and he was at a save percentage of .833. And then following the game after that, the Blackhawks. So we had Skinner, Dahlin, and Eric Johnson all had goals. The Sabres won 3-2. Paterka and Dahlin both had 2 assists. Middlestud and Benson both had assists. UPL had 26 saves against, 2 goals against, 26 shots against, 2 goals against, and added save percentage of .923. Overall, what'd you think of the away series, Sam?
I mean, you split it, so
Yeah.
like not too much crazy to talk about there. We snapped our losing streak, so that was something. I really, for the majority of the Jets game, I missed it, but I caught the last period, and they looked great during that period. So I only have like, oh, that like I wonder why we didn't win. I looked back through like the highlights, and I was like, oh, that's how we didn't win. But yeah, it's not too remarkable when you split the series, and I think that I think that Luukkonen played well. That was kind of a standout for me. And that's about it. That's kind of my takeaways. The game in Chicago felt unremarkable. We didn't do too much there. It didn't feel like we really set ourselves like apart from this team that's supposed to be really bad. Exactly. We ended up getting a late goal from Eric Johnson to get us the ahead and to keep the lead and to end up winning. But that's not you don't want to be expecting goals from Eric Johnson every week to try and get you ahead. And again, it was 2-3-2 games that we split. Nothing too remarkable in my mind. Did anything stand out specifically to you during those games?
No, not at all. I mean, the Sabres right now, I wouldn't call them a flat tire, but they're definitely a tire that's leaking air right now. They're just playing uninspired. And it's kind of convenient that you caught the third period because Granato supposedly just went in on the team at the second period in the locker room. Yeah, at that game. That's kind of what inspired to come out and actually play hard. But,
we did. Period. We looked good, really good. Because honestly, I was watching. I'm like, man, we're down 3-1. I think it was at the time. I'm like, this sucks. But they played very well. I think we gave up like a few extended zone times to them. And then that penalty to Benson at the very end was stupid. Don't think a penalty. He kind of got mugged there. Like it was weird that he was the only one who walked away. Like I understand he touched the goalie, but like 3 people jumped him afterwards. There's got to be some sort of offset there. Like it's got to be like 2 people to the box, and then figure it out from there. But that was a weird penalty to me. But other than that, the third period looked by and large pretty good for us.
Yeah. So. What did you think of the team's response when Benson got mugged? I was kind of listening to a couple podcasts, specifically, after the whistle.
I'm sure they're like, we need more grit. We need to be able to protect our 18-year-old guy out there. If 3 people are going to jump him, did it sound something like that?
It was that, yeah. It was definitely that. Between that and also the Chicklets were saying the kind of the same thing, pointing to that as well. And obviously, this brings back memories of when Lucic hit Miller. I mean, you kind of get a little bit, obviously this is a different thing. Like Benson you're going to be your star of the team right now, but he's a younger guy. He's your up and coming guy. And really, you didn't see the team respond at all to him getting mugged in front of the net that well. So
yeah, I would need to have looked at who was on the ice then, because there were certain players on the ice I would have been pretty upset. But if it was like Victor Olofsson, did we expect anything else? But yeah, that's something I would have to go back, watch the footage, see who was actually on the ice during that play to determine whether or not, because I think we do have people who will stick up for you on most of the lines. Like you got Dylan Cousins, he's not great at it, and he gets punched in the face and breaks his nose or whatever, and that happens. You got Peyton Krebs, you got I've seen Zemgush get scrappy. A lot of our defensemen are willing to get scrappy with it. Another thing with that play was that it was 3 people in front of the net. Benson, the shot came in from kind of the one of the face-off dots, and there was no one really. It was 3 people and Benson. You would have had to have taken 5 strides to get over to if you were one of the people on our team, you would have had to have taken 5 strides to get over to where Benson was. It was kind of out of the way. Obviously, you would like to see a response, but I don't know. It was just a weird play.
Yeah, I mean to the point though. I feel like it shouldn't. Even if you have to come off from the other zone,
right?
I mean,
you should still want to see
your
someone
teammates
protect his.
I mean, the Drew Stafford is the one that fought Lucic after he hit Miller. So,
Right.
you know, and like I said, this isn't, you know, we're not comparing apples to apples. This is apples to oranges. Benson's definitely not a star in the league right now, but he is your younger guy. And you want to protect him too. You know, like you said, I mean, there's some guys who you're not going to expect that from, like Victor Olofsson. You know, we're not going to harp on him, but he's clearly he's in it for himself. He doesn't really care about anyone else on the team. Supposedly, he's a locker room guy, which
I think he probably. I don't think any of these guys don't care about the other people on your team. But Victor Olofsson would get his crap kicked out of him if he ever tried to lay a hand on anyone else. Like he cannot win a board battle. We're expecting him to now get into scrums. Like he would just be ignored basically.
But he's at to the point right now where he's not doing anything positive for the team at all. I mean, I don't want to see a guy like, I know Dylan Cousins be coming off as this tough guy, but he was also a 30-goal scorer last year. And he shouldn't be getting into fights like that. Tuck shouldn't be doing that either. I mean, if those guys are willing to go into a fight, then Victor Olofsson should be, you know, you're fighting for a job in the NHL right now. You're just lucky that Kevin Adams just doesn't want to give you up for some odd reason. Because I don't think many other, I mean, we know he's a power play specialist. He can score goals, and I'm sure there's a team out there that wants him. But the fan base doesn't want you at this point. And, you know, and he's had years of this. So you got to, I feel like there's a lot of, especially with him, it's you helped out the team back when you were a regular first liner, second liner scoring goals, but now you're not really part of the plans or the future of this team. So you're auditioning this season for another team, and you're going to be a third or fourth liner on another team. I think they're not going to sign you for a big time deal. So you got to kind of show this stuff. But, you know, I would have a real problem if it was Greenway on the ice and no one came down there and did that. So, yeah. Cool. And then, I don't know. It's just been, like I said, this just overall, it's kind of just the energy of the team right now where they're only responding when the coach is getting after you. And that's not how you should be playing. And that's, if you're going to be playing uninspired all the time, you're not going to be showing that aggression for your teammates. It's kind of ruined. That's what ruined the Sabres. I guess that's what kind of led to this 12-year drought right now. Is like Miller gets hit, team falls apart, other teams start picking on them because they're not as aggressive, they're not as tough, and then it just. From there, like the Sabres floundered. They were just, like I said, they were a leaking tire and they became flat. And it's just, you don't want to see the signs from these teams that, you know, you're not willing to stick up for your teammates and be aggressive, no matter what the situation or no matter what your role is on the team. And like I said, obviously you don't want to see certain guys in there, but at this point, you know, you're not a top end team where you can get away with that stuff. I mean, that's just my feelings right now for the team. I don't know if it's kind of too much at this point.
Right. Again, like for me, the opinion is just like the people who aren't fighters on this team, minus Victor Olofsson, because we've exhausted this conversation to no end.
Yeah.
The people who aren't fighters on this team are, or at least aren't like willing to get a little chippy with you, are those who are very high skill players like, you know, Jeff Skinner or Tage Thompson, and each of those guys can put up 40 goals. So I think if that's the trade-off we're making, if we're saying, hey, it's a 40-goal guy or a guy who's maybe a little chippy, I don't mind seeing all of our players be 40-goal guys, but that's obviously unrealistic. Yes, you'd like to see them chip in and fight. And, you know, Bills fan says, love it. You always want to see the guys protecting your other guys. And you got to have that mentality of like, that's my guy that you're going after. He's 18. He's new to the league. I got to be looking to stick up for him. And especially with a guy like Benson, you want to see that. But yeah, I don't know. The conversation about like fighting in this league and like whether or not people should be like sticking up for the people, obviously, you want to see them kind of protected and stuck up for. I don't know. I just don't feel like adding more fighters to our team is the solution. I don't want just like a pure grit guy. I think the hybrid guys are where this like team and league are probably going, you get someone like Greenway, and he's just a perfect hybrid between like, yeah, he's kind of defensively, he's that defensive guy, he's kind of a big body and he's willing to get into scrums, and also he's got a little bit of offensive upside to him, as we saw at the start of the year. It's cooled off a bit, but like you still see it. I think like that's probably, if we want to round out our bottom the bottom of our lineup, like that's who you should be going for, and not just like a pure grit guy. But yeah, I could see us maybe like yeah, we do probably need at least a little more grit, because Victor Olofsson and whoever else is on the ice at the time of the jumping of Benson it failed him there.
Would you consider bringing back a player like Nikita Zadorov to the team?
I haven't seen Nikita Zadorov play in so long that honestly I don't
really
know. Yeah, I don't really have a opinion on him. Like, I'm trying to think about another kind of like great guy that we've had recently, and
like a Marcus Foligno.
Yeah, I got Marcus Foligno has kind of etched out a really nice role for himself in Minnesota. Yeah. And so like he does that defensive, like he's had like a really good like defensive kind of run, and he is willing to get chippy with people. And so yeah, like a player like him, he was one of the people who was on Greenway's line when they were the best defensive line in the league, I'm pretty sure 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, sure. That's a homecoming that would probably be okay. I'd be all right with that.
I don't know if he would. I think he's from the Minnesota. Well, no, he's from Canada. But I think he's liking it there in Minnesota. So I don't think he's going to be leaving anytime soon. And the only reason why I bring up Zadorov is just because he does play that tough defensive game, but he's also I don't know if he's playing. I think he's a second pair defenseman. And
he's on the Flames right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he has 6 points, 1 goal, 5 assists, but he's also playing 18 minutes a game, and it's almost. I mean, he would almost be a good pairing with Power in the second D. I know we're talking about Ryan Johnson too, and all those guys. But I feel like bringing that physical element so that Power can play his style of game too would also be a benefit as well. And then having this tough, because he is 6'6" and he's a fighter and he checks hard, like he hits hard. He doesn't check hard. He's not a Clifton style hitter,
right? So
he'll use his body a little bit more, and that's kind of why I brought him up, just because the Flames they do have 17 points right now, so not really out of it, but I always feel like that team's like, they're trying to tank, but they're not doing it successfully at this point.
Right. Yeah, that team is weird how they imploded. They thought that by firing the coach that they would solve their problems, and in fairness, their coach was bad. But then their problems didn't go away, and now they're all scratching their heads like, what do we do? Yeah. And so yeah, I guess maybe they're in on Celebrini, but
yeah, they're a middle league team right now.
I think in terms of just kind of transitioning, because you brought up Power and how you might want to see like a player like Zadorov with Power. Why not Samuelsson? I think so. Going back 2 years, right? We have a Rasmus Dahlin, or maybe it's 3 years now. Time flies. 2 or 3 years ago, Rasmus Dahlin, who's been struggling, and he has never really had a top pair guy with him. And we get Samuelsson, and Samuelsson is realistically not a top pair guy.
Yeah.
As much as it pains me to say it, he's not. He's great at what he does. And for $4 million for however long we have him, assuming he can stay healthy, he'll continue to be great at what he does.
Yeah.
What Samuelsson provided for Dahlin was the ability for Dahlin to play the game the way that Dahlin wanted to play the game. For a season, he didn't have to worry about defense, and he was able to lock down his offensive game, figure that out, and then with Samuelsson next to him, figure out how to play the defensive game in his own end, how to play the body with this big bodied guy next to him. Do the same for Power. Dahlin's figured it out. He doesn't need a guy to do that part of the job for him, because guess what? Dahlin now does that better than anyone on our team.
Yeah.
And Dahlin was playing with Ryan Johnson. I think that Dahlin and Ryan Johnson was a pretty good pairing. The last 2 games, at least, I thought that they were pretty solid. Johnson isn't going to do any of the big hitting, so maybe him with Power, it kind of doesn't give you that dynamic that you were talking about. But if you're running Dahlin and then Johnson, you have Dahlin maybe covering for the same kind of deficiencies that he had 2 years ago, but now they're Johnsons, and that's going to be a very dynamic puck moving duo, along with the fact that Dahlin can absolutely crunch someone. And now you've given Samuelsson the ability to move off of that top pairing, and now he's with Power and can do the same thing that he did for Dahlin 2 years ago. Give Power the opportunity to just play some offense, figure it out, get out of your own head for a second. And you have a guy next to you who's going to absolutely tear it up in corners, and you're going to need to cover for him when it comes to passing, breakouts, offense, because he's not going to do that for you. And you guys kind of sort each other out that way. And then our bottom pair is just whatever we have on our bottom pair.
Yeah.
And I think that we don't need to bring someone else, and I just would like to see that sort of shift, because we know that that's an area that we've seen Samuelsson play in and excel in and help to help the guy next to him, and we know that's currently an area that Power's struggling in. I don't think that it needs to be Zadorov who comes in and does that, because we got a guy here who can already do that.
Would you consider cutting Power's minutes down?
Sure, yeah. I think
the reason why I asked that is just because really, so Power plays on the Power. Wow, Power is on the second power play is what I'm trying to say. I almost said Power plays on the second power play.
Power plays on the power play,
but he's not really a threat on the power play. He doesn't really have too much of a shot. So whenever the team is setting up in the defensive zone and they're playing against that, they don't really have to account for Power, because he's not going to go for that. He's not going to fire a slap shot at least, and he doesn't really have that confidence to take that wrist shot either. He's always constantly looking for the puck or looking for the pass. And at this point, I'm not that I'm trying to take away minutes from him to lower his confidence even more, but maybe we have to take a little bit of responsibility away from him just so he can get his game back at this point.
I think that the power play issue is again, I do like the idea.
I'm not going to place it just on him though, but they haven't done anything on the power play to make a change.
The more I watch it, the more I think about what we talked about last week, where it's probably a systems problem. They don't use the guy in the middle. They don't use the guy down low as often as they probably should. So they just sit at the top with the defenseman holding the puck, and then he's going to pass it to one of the two wingers, and they're going to pass it back to him. And you're not going to get a shot off that way because you haven't gotten the defenseman actually moving, and they can clear or clog up the lanes very quickly. I think that's just a systems thing. You gotta start using the two people who aren't the top umbrella, right? And I don't know. I don't know who you would replace in that point spot if not Power. You would like to see him work on his shot. That's something I think will come with time. I think that's a skill that you can work. We saw Dahlin worked on that and then came out the next year and broke the record for consecutive games scored by a defenseman to start a season.
Yeah.
Weird record, but whatever. And yeah, I think that's something he'll get better at. But for now, I don't think that the power play isn't working because it's him up there. They got to just start using those two extra people, because as of right now, the one guy in front of the net sometimes provides a screen and a tip, and that's it. The guy in the middle does not touch the puck. I mean, if you watch our last 10 power plays, count how many times the guy in the middle touches the puck.
Yeah. And I'm just trying to find ways to take away minutes from this kid. Just
because
he's playing. I mean, it's his second year. He's not playing good right now. The second goal of the Jets game, he was basically screening the hell out of Comrie. You couldn't see that puck come. And instead of him just being like, oh, maybe I'll just, get in front, maybe block this puck myself and get in front of it, he moves out of the way to let that puck go by, and it goes right in the top shelf corner because Comrie is blinded the whole entire time. It's almost like he's out there and he's just not in the game at some points. He's just like a loofah out there, just going through the motions of trying to figure out what's going to be the next thing. And he doesn't look well. He's going through the sophomore slump right now.
Yeah.
And I think it's best for him to cut this time down so he can kind of just to get him back into the game. Because right now he's just not in it anymore.
Right.
And he's still I think the both games he came out at a +1, which is fine. I mean, but after that -5 game, it's just kind of been downhill from here from Power, and I think he's losing a little bit of confidence.
Right.
And we all know he's not going to be. He doesn't have he shouldn't have the expectations that Dahlin had as a rookie. He's not going to be that type of player. We can all agree on that. He's going to be a solid defenseman, and he's going to take time to develop because every defenseman takes time to develop. But I think right now there's a lot of pressure on him being the second pair defenseman, basically a 1B at this point. And he's in his second year, and I think it's just too much time for him right now, and he's going through a slump. And like you said, there's not many options where it could be like, who's going to take over his time? So they have to figure something out because maybe he'll figure it out on his own. But at this point, it's been a long time to figure it out on himself. Maybe just cutting his time down and getting him back to the basics of the game is going to help him out in the long run.
Well, I mean, we've been playing 7 defensemen for the last however many games. It's been a while now. We've been playing 7 defensemen. Maybe it's time to give him a breather. Like, I wouldn't be opposed to that. The same way we talked about. Maybe it's time to give Levi some time in the A. Maybe it's time to give Power a breather. Sit him in the press box for a game. Maybe 2.
Huh.
We've got 7 defensemen. We've got 8 defensemen on the roster right now. 7 who've been playing. Like, you can afford it. Give him some time. Think about the games. Just get him in a proper headspace again to want to compete, want to really put his all into his game, and hopefully he comes back. Hopefully he would come back stronger from it.
Yeah.
And we still wouldn't have to see forgetting his name. He hasn't played in a while, which is good. Bryson.
Yeah.
I kept thinking Benson, not Benson.
Yeah.
Bryson, 2 B's. Yeah. But we wouldn't even have to see Bryson, which is great news.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's good enough I think we've always have a not only a Olsen talk, but always a Power talk every single episode. So
right.
I think we can curb that right now.
Yeah. It's a part of the tradition at this point, and until either, for Olsen, it's either he's like traded or being scratched, and for Power, it's until he just figures it out. And it's probably going to be a talking point for Sabres fans and for us because, it's something that's going on that is problematic.
Yeah. So before we move on to the next topic, we'll just throw out some things. So we have the donation tracker that's going to be in the chat. So
we got $10 from Drewby
Drunkowski, appreciate it. Go Bills, that's right. Go Buffalo. And then Bills fan, California. Any word on Patrick Kane? Is that still a possibility? I heard one thing about now with the Tage Thompson injury that it may not be a sure thing anymore. I don't know if you heard anything.
I saw that same post, and I'm like, that's a weird reason to be like, never mind. I guess if you're like Patrick Kane and you're like, I want to be on a playoff team during but I think if you were serious about the playoffs and winning another cup, this wasn't really the place for 1 year anyway. Like this team, their goal wasn't to win a cup this year. It's get to the playoffs and get that experience because you've got such a young team. Yeah. And like the cumulative playoff games on this team is very low. I guess we added Eric Johnson, but like it would definitely be a part of the developmental process. No one was expecting us to win cups this year. So like for Patrick Kane to be like, Tage Thompson's out, guess we're not winning a cup here. So whatever. Like, like if that report were true, that is really weird to me.
Yeah. And the rumors were hot last week and they just completely died down this week. So we really haven't heard anything.
Yeah.
And what are his options right now? It's Toronto, which really, I mean, do they have cap space to even?
Yeah. If he's going anywhere else, he's really not getting paid.
Yeah. The Rangers. I mean, would we want to go back to the Rangers? He had a good regular season, but the playoff just kind of fell apart. Were there any other options for him out there at all that you heard
I haven't heard anything. Yeah. But you know where would be a good fit in my opinion?
Where's that?
He would look good on the Canucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are having a great season right now.
They're off to a great start to the season, and you know what? They definitely have some like bottom six guys who, if you could replace with Patrick Kane, would be an upgrade. A lot of their offense is Quinn Hughes right now, so if you could add some more scoring, maybe a player to the power play to make it even that much more deadly. I think that Vancouver would be a good look for Patrick Kane if he's willing to go to Vancouver, which is probably one of his limiting factors.
Would you say the team in Vancouver can almost mirror the Sabres in a way? Whereas, like, you have the star defenseman, you have some, Elias Peterson's like a good offenseman. So last year, the Sabres had a better team last year, but Vancouver was like bottom of the league last year, and they come back with the same team. The only thing that they changed was the coaching change, and now they're playing pretty well. Whereas the Sabres kind of came back with the same roster, and they're still kind of like a middling team. Would you say they're almost like mirror images in each other?
I would think that the Vancouver that we're seeing this year is probably similar to the Sabres that we saw last year.
Yeah.
I think that it feels a lot like they're like certain players are just overperforming.
Yeah.
Like, Rasmus Dahlin went off to a really hot start last season. Tage Thompson, maybe it was last year the highest points he gets. We'll see. This year he's been a little bit slow. Alex Tuck looked way better last year. Dylan Cousins, like you see all the offense from last year's kind of maybe regressing a little bit now for us. I think that's kind of what it feels like to me in Vancouver, because I've watched some of these guys play. I think Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes are the real deals. But for Quinn Hughes, the last time I checked, he was leading the league in points.
Yeah.
That doesn't check out in my brain. Again, I think he's like the real deal. I think he's great. I don't think he's leading the league in points great right now. Like, it feels like maybe things are clicking just a little bit too well for their offense, kind of like how maybe last year that was the case for us. And now we're here trying to figure out how to get the goals to start coming our way again, and we'll see about them if they can continue this not only for the remainder of the year but in the next year. But yeah, I think that their current run is mirroring a lot of maybe what we saw in our team last year.
So, Sam, that's what we call in the business a lead-in, and that's how we do that right there. Because, like I said, did this Sabres offense peak last year was the first question. And that's kind of what I wanted to lead into, because like you mentioned, did some of these – because we had – Tuck had a career year. Did Skinner have a career year last year?
Skinner had a career year in points. Maybe not goals, though.
Not goals, yeah. Then we also have Cousins, who's – also had a career year last year as well. And then we also had Dahlin. And then
Dahlin doesn't feel like he's
Thompson.
Done. Like, I think Dahlin is going to eclipse what he got last year. But of the group that we just mentioned, Dahlin's the only one that feels like that's the case for right now. That's worrying.
It is.
Skinner's playing really well too. I'm not going to discount what Skinner's doing, but I don't think he's going to eclipse what he got last year.
No, and I don't think we should expect Skinner to do that. We kind of know where he is at his career. Yeah. He's 30, he's 33 years old, 31? I don't know what his age is.
31 or 2.
Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, so, you know who he is as a player. Last year he added a lot more assists to his game, which is great. But he's a goal scorer at the end of the day, and that's what he's doing right now. He leads the team right now in goals at 8 goals. He still has 14 points, so he still has 6 assists. So that's 14 points is good.
Yeah,
for second.
It's great. Like he's doing very well for himself right now.
Yeah. So I'm not too worried about Skinner, but the guys who I'm worried about are Tuck. Tuck because he's expected to be the future of the team. He's not getting paid to be a leader on the team, but he's also playing on the first line.
Right.
And I guess the most concerning is Cousins to be overall. He got paid 7 years, $7 million, just under what Tage Thompson is. Did they kind of pull the trigger too early on him?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. It seems like maybe you could have got him for less if you signed him after this year, but I don't know. see it being like too much of a problem going forward. I don't think that the contract, when all is said and done, is going to look bad.
Yeah.
But right now it's tough. It looks tough. He's definitely being paid more than he's doing, and that is not what you want to see.
Yeah.
Especially from a guy who just got the contract.
Mm-hmm.
But
so I listened to I was going to reference this, but I was listening to Paul Hamilton in an interview. Not everyone's a big fan of Paul Hamilton, but he actually brought up a good point. Whereas at the beginning of the season, Dylan Cousins he was expected to be the second line center, but then you have the emergence of Middlestat coming up.
Right.
And he kind of just, after Middlestat was putting up the points and got bumped up to the second line, Cousins really didn't have a place on this team. So he's kind of been hopping around in lines. They've been playing him at wing too. He hasn't really been settled down in a position. And he's kind of thought maybe this is affecting him, where he doesn't really have a solid position where he's at on the team right now. Obviously, he was paid to be your future second center for the next 7 years. But right now, for being a young guy, he might be lost on this team. And Hamilton also mentioned with Tage Thompson being out, this is kind of the time where he's going to have to prove himself in his standing on this team right now. Because when Tage was back and Middlestat was also playing, he was the third line center, or they were placing him on the wing, and he kind of really wasn't fitting in anywhere. Would you say that's an assessment that you would agree with?
I'm sorry. So you said Thompson was having that same struggle, or are you saying?
No, I'm saying when Thompson was in the lineup.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Cousins really didn't have a spot anywhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that, maybe that's a little bit of the case. I don't like the utilization that Granato has kind of put out this year. I would love to see it, just so that you don't. Stepping back a little bit. Yeah. Tage Thompson had a great year last year, and people figured out that, hey, Tage Thompson is good. Let's put our assignments on him, right? Yeah. So you like the better defensive players, the better defensive defensemen are going to be out when Tage Thompson is out. And, maybe that cramps him up a little bit. I would love to see Don Granato roll out 3 even ice time lines, where you have Tage Thompson, Casey Middlestat, and Dylan Cousins, and each one of them has ample support. And then you run your fourth line as infrequently as possible, because honestly, I don't think that line has been up to snuff recently.
Nope, not at all.
But we're not doing that.
No.
And that, whatever that third line is, ends up getting the least time on ice, because Don really values his energy fourth line, his defensive guys. But they definitely have a place on the team. That's not something I'm super excited to see. I would love it if you could alleviate some of the pressure that Thompson feels by giving, and I think we'll be able to do this more next year when we have guys like Kulik and Rosine up in the lineup, and Benson having another year. But it would be very nice to see, you got, say, Thompson, Skinner, Tuck, Middlestat, Paterka, Benson, and then Quinn, Cousins, and someone else. Those are 3 hard lines to pair up against. And if you're going to use your best defenseman against Tage Thompson, now you're sacrificing a lot of time to other very talented forwards. And again, it's definitely going to be we're going to be more difficult when we have people back from injuries, and we can bring up some of these young guys who are lighting it up in the AHL right now. But yeah, for the time being, Dylan Cousins kind of doesn't have a place, because he's been floating around on the wing. And when he is on the third line, he's getting Tyson Yost and Peyton Krebs, or Tyson Yost and Victor Olofsson. And it's you should be able to play with any of those guys, but I'm not going to expect Dylan Cousins playing with those guys to light it up, and he's not. And because we already know that he's a defensive liability, you put him with Victor Olofsson. If both of them aren't lighting it up, now you've got a black hole on the ice. Like, yeah, he does kind of currently lost his place, but I don't think that that's the end all be all for him on this team. I do think that like you can structure it so that not only is he like a more potent offensive force, but more potent than he's ever been, because we're seeing the emergence of a guy like JJ Peterka, who was on his wing last year, and they were dynamite together.
Yeah.
Like, you can find some sort of combination of these guys to make it so that you've got 3 good offensive lines, and all of a sudden, like, the dynamic has totally changed. You free things up not only for Dylan by giving him better line mates and giving him a permanent spot to just like sit and get comfortable in, but then you free things up for, Middlestat and Thompson, and hopefully get them going as well.
Yeah. And I think a big thing that people are missing out on is not having Quinn this year at all. I think he had a better impact on that line between Cousins and Peterka, just because he was the more overall player on that team.
Yeah, he was very overall like well-rounded compared to the other 2 guys.
Yeah. I mean, he stepped up his defensive game in the AHL, and the other 2 guys are offensive. But go ahead, Sam.
Quinn is back skating.
I heard, yeah,
full gear, I think it was. And so like that's they still don't have a timeline for him, but that's encouraging. Back on the ice, back in skates, back practicing. Like,
yeah, he's with the team, right, in Chicago today with the practice.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's good. I mean, they probably will. I would say end of January he might be back.
Right.
They'll probably have him practice with the team for a while, for about like a month. I mean, I wouldn't mind him just doing a quick AHL stint just to, get his feet back under him. I know some people don't agree with that, but I think that would be a nice little warm up before hopping into the NHL. So yeah, I mean, I think having him back is going to impact that line. Will it be too little too late? Possibly. I mean, it's, we'll see. I mean, it's something that's going to happen. But to go back in the conversation of this team, like you mentioned, and we mentioned last week, our 3rd and 4th line are just 6 4th liners at this point.
Yeah.
Okposo and Gergensen, I don't believe. I think they're either. I know Gergensen has 2 points. Okposo might have 1 point, and Okposo, he plays on the second power play, doesn't he?
Okposo does play on the second power play.
Yeah.
He gets, but he's in that bumper spot.
Exactly.
Or maybe he's the net front spot. He's definitely not one of the winger spots, so he doesn't touch the puck anyway. It doesn't matter.
He doesn't. But it's just, I mean,
and also it's not like the power play is producing, so like,
yeah,
his numbers aren't going to be affected by being on there.
No, he's more of like a screen type of guy, but still, it's just these guys are getting ice time. Those guys are getting ice time at a crazy amount, and I feel like it's not going to be a change until next year. But there's going to have to be a wholesale change on those bottom 2 lines. I don't expect Okposo to be back. I don't expect Gergensen to be back. I mean, if you're expecting Rusek to come up next year, he's going to be a 4th liner.
Yeah, I think our 4th line next year should be Krebs, Rusek, and Greenway, and I would be so much happier with that.
Yeah, would you be?
And I think that'd be good. Like, I think as it currently stands, that 4th line is probably better than what we currently have. The issue is then you're bumping Greenway down, and he's currently one of the 3rd or 2nd liners. So,
yeah. Would you put a Bureau on the 4th line?
A Bureau on the 4th line. It depends. If we're putting Bureau on the 4th line, I'm just scrapping all pretenses of what my 4th line is, and I'm running 4 good lines, like 4 scoring lines.
Yeah.
And I think with the prospects we have in the system, like next year or the year after, we're going to have a conversation about what we think our 4th line should look like, because we have too many prospects that do scoring well. And maybe you end up with a 4th line that's like Bureau, Peyton, Krebs, and Kulik or something, or Savoy, because as it turns out, we don't really have that. Like, I guess we do have, like, we got like Philip Cedarquist, and he kind of fills that. I don't know. We have a lot of interesting questions for the future about and it'll depend on what we want our 4th line to look like. If we want it to be that more defensively minded, like kind of lockdown line, or if we want to just say like all offense all the time, like we were just run and gun. Yeah. But Yeah, if we're saying that we like Bureau enough to keep him around, I don't think that he would really edge out one of the players who would be in the top like 9. Like, okay, theoretically next year we got top line, Tage, Jeff, and Alex Tuck.
Yeah.
Great. I'll just say, just for simplicity, line 2 is going to be Dylan Cousins, JJ Paterka, and Jack Quinn.
Yep.
Line 3 is Casey Middlestat.
If he's re-signed.
If he's re-signed, I hope he re-signs. So Casey Middlestat, 1 or 2 of Savoy, Benson, Kulik, Rosane, right? So now we've got Casey Middlestat and 1 of 4 guys.
Yeah.
And I haven't mentioned Jordan Greenway yet because I already have them like penciled in as my 4th line guy.
Yeah.
If you want Bureau to stick around, either he has to pass one of like 2 of those guys because only 2 would be on the 3rd line. He would have to pass 2 of those guys, or we would have to make the executive decision that 4th line is a little more skilled than defensively sound.
Yeah. Or they might have to make some trades.
Even if the 4th line we decide is a bit more skilled than defensively minded, like, great. Now you have like Kulik on a 4th line with Peyton Krebs and Jordan Greenway, right? Like you still have to beat at least one of those guys. I don't think that Savoy is a guy we like. I think he'll see the AHL,
be an AHL guy next
year.
Yeah.
Like I think he'll see some time up, but I think he'll see the AHL first.
Yeah.
He just had like a 4 or 5 point game in the WHL. So like he's feeling it a little bit.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess it's the point where the coaching staff has to decide what type of team that they want to be. And like we mentioned, this team has a lot of guys that can score. The focus on the team this offseason was defense. Now they don't really have too much offense. So they're going to have to decide what's going to happen just because I think a lot of people's heads are spinning at this point about what's the identity of this team going to be in the future. Just because if you're going to have a lot of skill guys, you're not going to have a lot of grit guys. You're not going to have a lot of guys. And then do you fill that out in the back end of the defense because Eric Johnson's only on a 1-year deal? You have Clifton there. Clifton, he's probably going to be. I'm hoping he's going to be a 7th defenseman next year. Please let him be.
He's already the 7th in my mind now that Ryan Johnson is here.
Yeah, well, yeah, Ryan Johnson definitely has a spot on the team for the rest of the season. If he gets
in my eyes, he's earned it. Like he's been one of our 6 best defensemen.
Yeah, I would say he's probably one of our 6 best players on the ice. To be honest with you, and then obviously you have Power, and they have Dahlin, and then you have Samuelson. So. It's going to be interesting. I guess another question that we're going to have to lead into kind of this season too is Benson. He's kind of been one of the top players on the ice the past 2 games, and his 9th game is coming up against the Capitals. What are you thinking? Is he a guy that stays up, or do they send him back down?
Well, before I address that question, I'm just going to quickly move to chat. Tom mentions 40 steamed hams. That's way back when we were talking about Jeff Skinner.
Yep.
And Principal Skinner followed it up by donating 8 steamed hams to the Punt Foundation. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I wonder who that is. Tom, are you Principal Skinner?
I wonder. There's
big question right there. Appreciate it, Principal Skinner, a.k.a. Tom.
All right, so Zach Benson. Yep. When Zach Benson has been in the lineup, and like, I have stats pulled up for him, so I'll get to that in a second. When Zach Benson has looked in the lineup and hasn't played like 4 games in a row, I think he's looked really good. Mm-hmm. Again, we talked about it last week. If you run a rotation of him and Kyle Okposo in and out of the lineup, I would be really happy with that. I think that like he's got it. I think he has the skill, he has the tenacity, he can play at this level. It's just a matter of being able to do it for 82 games, which I don't think he's there.
Yep.
He showed fatigue after or by the time that the Lightning game came around early in the season, and then like fatigued some more, got injured, came back, has looked great in that last game that he played. I think he was one of our best players on the ice.
Yeah.
And his numbers are supporting it. He's played 8 games for us so far, and through those 8 games, he's got 4 assists, so that's 0.5 goals or points per game. He has a 56.71 expected goals percentage, and that's second on the team. He has 1.78 expected goals against per 60, and that is first on the team. So when he is on the ice, the team is scoring 56% of the goals scored, and when he is on the ice, the team is letting in, or is expected to let in, the least number of goals for anyone else compared to anyone else on the team. So he's doing pretty well for himself, at least analytically, and I think that the eye test has backed that up, at least for me.
Yeah, I think Granado showed his hand a couple of weeks ago when he was on WGR and basically mentioned something about Benson throughout the year. And I think they know way ahead of time that Benson's going to be on the team to stay. But he also mentioned the one thing, too, is that he said Benson shows NHL tendencies. I don't think you have to watch him without the puck because that's where you see him at his best. And the one thing that I noticed is the kid is always moving. I mean, he's always trying to get open, trying to get in the passing lane, trying to get in the shooting lane, do something for the team. He's also playing a style of play that many guys don't play, where he's willing to get in the corners and fight for the pucks too. And that kind of leads to, like we mentioned, he's going to probably have these injuries that are going to pop out throughout the year just because, one, he's not at the strength to play in the NHL right now. That's something that he's going to have to work on while he's up in the NHL, and he's going to need to do that with breaks throughout the season where maybe it's a game, maybe it's 2 games. He's going to have to work on that. And then, he'll definitely be more playing top minutes within the next couple of years. But I feel like if he were to go back to juniors, it's just going to be a waste for him. He had over 130 points last season, and he's done it all down there. I mean, he dominated the team. He was the best player on that team. A lot of analysts were saying he was the one that actually made Savoy a first-round pick. So what's the point? There's no point in really sending him down. Unfortunately, you can't send him down to the AHL. So you got to keep him just underneath your umbrella and just keep him in the NHL right now. I don't see any benefit for them. And the great thing too is the Sabres do have the World Juniors coming up, and that will give them a little bit of time just to get a break. And then maybe in that time period, the Sabres can figure out what they're going to do with their team at that point, because they're going to have to start making moves. They're going to get crowded with Benson up and Quinn coming back pretty soon as well. Who knows when he's going to come back, but it's going to be soon. They're going to have to start making a decision about what's going to happen with this roster.
Maybe we'll finally send Bryson back to the AHL.
I'm pretty sure he can clear waivers. I mean, I don't know if there's many teams going to be looking for a 5'9" defenseman who's not Torrey Krug. He's not a Torrey Krug type of defenseman either. So
yeah.
I guess we agree on that. I think a lot of people are agreeing on that as well. I expect to see Benson in the future. And I guess the other thing that we have to kind of discuss too is this 3 goalie rotation going on right now. To me, I think this goalie rotation is going to have to stop. You already have your clear-cut starter right now, and it's UPL.
Which is shocking.
Yes, we did not expect that at all.
Kind of going into the year, I was like, I don't have the greatest faith in Levi because he's a rookie. But I watched the first couple of Comrie games, and I'm like, okay, this is our guy. And then maybe not. Maybe it is UPL, and that is not what I expected to end up on. But good for you, UPL, because going into the year, you were the odd one out, kind of. Like, you were the one people were trying to get rid of. And you know what? Right now, I think you're playing the best out of all the 3 goaltenders.
Joe DiBiase on Locked On Sabres is like, oh, this is kind of perfect. He's almost good trade bait at this point. And I was sitting there, I'm like,
Joe,
why are you dying so hard?
Who are you trading him for? Because we only he's the best goalie we have right now.
Why does he want to get rid of this kid? Either way, it doesn't make any sense.
He's still 24 or whatever. Like, as the goalies go, that's really young.
Yeah, and he was a first-round pick, right? If I recall.
Yeah, I mean, maybe a second-round pick.
Second-round pick. I mean, he's still highly regarded in the NHL as a prospect. So, I mean, I don't know why the hate still exists with him. He's proving himself now. Hopefully, he stays healthy. That's the biggest thing for him. And like I said, he's at a 911 save percentage right now, and he's beating the other two guys by a significant amount because the other two are under 900. The next best goalie is Comrie at 898%. He's had probably a couple less games compared to the other two, so which is either a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know.
Right.
But Levi's at an 881 percentage, and I mean, he might be the odd man out. I think we discussed this last week, but for me, I think he needs a good AHL stint, like you mentioned.
Yeah, I think like he's good. You can obviously see the talent, and I think no one can dispute that, right? He is going he looks like he's going to be a very good goalie in the league for years to come. But perhaps that year hasn't come. Perhaps he needs just a moment to season in professional hockey.
Yeah,
and that's okay. If if I'm him, I should be like perfectly content with the fact that is okay. You are 21 years old. There are not many goalies your age in the NHL right now, nor has there really ever been, because that's just not really how it works. Take a moment, dominate at the lower level, which like you've done all your career. He always has had like a slower career trajectory, and he's always taken a moment to just dominate at every level he's been at. Go back to that. Prove that you can do it in a professional league with the grind of like a longer, more rigorous schedule.
Yeah.
And come back next year and do what everyone was hoping you would do this year. Like that's, I think that's a more realistic trajectory for him.
Yeah. No, I agree. Like you said, he's dominated at every level, but he's still really. The Sabres definitely jumped the gun last year for his last 7 games that he played. I mean, it was a small sample size, but he also had a young kid coming in from college hockey. He's bringing in some new blood and new life into the Sabres. The Sabres were also competing for a playoff spot, so they're kind of upping their game as well. So I think a lot of he was playing good. Don't get me wrong, but I think a lot of the accolades were given to Levi, and maybe just not the team probably playing better overall defensively toward the end of the season last year.
Right.
So, and I think it's better. I'm not too worried about Levi when it comes to like confidence, just because he seems overall like a confident player. He knows he's a 7th round draft pick. He never really won the goalie battles at all levels, and always had a fight to get the starting position every single year. He was going into Northeastern as a freshman. He wasn't the starting goaltender. I believe what he mentioned, he didn't play juniors. I forgot what he was mentioning in this. Definitely check out the Chicklets interview that they had with him today, because it was you got a lot of insight into the type of player and person that he is. But he also mentioned too there, he was still fighting for the starting goaltender percent too. It wasn't just handed to him. So he had to earn it all the way.
He was a kind of like a extra invite for like World Juniors, I think is maybe what you're thinking of.
Yeah.
And he had like 5 goalies ahead of him, and he was only there on a recommendation because he knew one of the coaches, I think it is.
Yep.
And he ends up, we all know that's kind of where he cemented himself as like, hey, I should be on people's radars. He put that was like the record breaking World Juniors, where he put up like a 9.6 something, maybe 9.5 something through the tournament. And I think that's how he ends up drafted by Florida.
Yeah. So I think we're all in agreement here. Let's get Levi back down. Let's get another. And there's guys in the AHL right now who are also deserving of a call up. Rocin's been playing well down there. Kulik has been playing well down there. Bring one of these kids up there and see if he kind of gives an offensive spark as well. I mean, both those guys earned it. And we already seen Rusick up. He's not going to bring that offensive spark. We don't really need to see him back up here unless we lose a 4th liner. And Bureau, he played pretty well, but I mean, I don't have future plans for Bureau on this team, to be totally honest with you. I can see him, getting picked up on the waivers maybe next season when he gets cut. I just don't see him here.
I think he's like the perfect example of a good call up to have available.
Yeah,
he's going to be that guy who's a tweener, and he's 25 now. I think that's kind of just who he is. If you can keep him in the system, great. But I don't think he's a guy that you really want to pencil into the roster going forward, or for like any part of this year. Like, he's not someone who you should be like keeping Rosine or Kulik out of the roster for. Because honestly, those guys have played better than him in the AHL. He's got more of a like well-rounded game. Like, he can play defense. I know, like, if you've watched Kulik, that's a problem that a lot of people have pointed out, that this guy can score like it's nobody's business, but does he even know what defense is? Which is not normally the like same situation that you see when a guy comes from a men's league.
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't a junior guy. He wasn't drafted from juniors. He was drafted from a men's league. So that's normally a critique of juniors, where we saw it with Savoy, who's a prime example of like, this guy has so much speed and talent and offense. Has he ever once been told play defense?
Nope. These guys are never told to play defense until they enter the NHL.
But Kulik is from a men's league, so it's a little bit weird. Like, he's playing with adults. It's a team where like the actual winning is important. You're separate from the NHL. Like, you don't have some sort of like prospects agreement with them the way that the CHL does.
Yeah.
Like, you are not a developmental league if you're in Europe. How did this guy go his whole career not playing defense? But you know what? It's something he'll figure out, I'm sure. But I do think that makes, for me at least, like, as of right now, if we're trying to win games, Bureau might be a better option than Kulik, but I still am pretty high on Rosine.
I think Rosine should be the next call up to the team, just because he, like you said, he has an overall game right now. Not only he's scoring goals, but he's getting assists as well. He's setting up his teammates, and
he's got the most points in the Amerks right now.
Yeah.
And so, like, he got like 3 points, maybe 4 in the last game. Like, he had a great game recently.
Yeah. And this is a kid that played in the SHL and was basically forgotten by his team. Kevin Adams pulled him over into the AHL. It's like, you don't care about him. We care about him. He's our future.
Right.
Last year in the AHL, he had a very slow start, and eventually he started to figure out the game. And he's developed into the player that he is right now. Whereas Kulik is he came in, he dominated in the AHL last year, and he's still scoring a lot of goals too. So maybe he's hanging his hat on that, and he's like forgetting about. He's like, well, I got the offense. That's all that matters. I'm not going to worry about defense. Right. Where it's like, well,
I mean, it worked for Victor.
It did, but Victor also wasn't a first-round pick. He was a seventh-round pick.
Yeah. And we're like as the Buffalo fans are looking at Kulik in the minors, we're just waiting for him to show up so we can get rid of Victor. So did it work for Victor? Who knows?
Yeah, but I think they might have to go to the Quinn approach, where Quinn, same thing, first year in the AHL, played offense, didn't play defense. During that offseason, Adams told him, if you don't start playing adding defense to your game, you're not going to be an NHL player. And guess what he did? He started adding defense. He became an all-around player. And like we mentioned, we might be that second line. That projected second line is kind of hurting without him right now. So, we'll see. I mean, maybe someone will have to have that talk with Kulik. Is, dude, you're not getting called up right now because you're not playing defense. And that's something that you have to add to be a top 6 forward on this team. So we'll see. Kind of like we're getting towards the end of the show, but we haven't gone over our 3 stars. Do you have your 3 stars for the week at all?
You know what? They're kind of haphazard because this was an uneventful week.
Yeah.
But I'm going to give it to Zach Benson. He showed back up, got an assist after being injured for a while. He played really well, and just no complaints there. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, he played 1 game this week, and he had pretty good stats. It was a 923, 2 goals against. No complaints there. And then I'm going to give my final star to Rasmus Dahlin. I think he had a fantastic game against the Blackhawks. He really took over during that game. Got a point on every goal, including one that he scored himself, and was just a presence the whole time. There were so many plays where he just like took over, decided, hey, I'm doing it myself, beat like 2 guys, passed it to like a guy who probably should have scored, and it didn't go in. But it is what it is.
Yeah. And those are my 3 stars too. Benson, like
Look
you
at
said,
that. We agree.
Yeah, had 2 points over those 2 games. Dahlin had, 1 assist. So yeah, he had 4 points over over those past 2 games as well. So he should be the first star. And then UPL kind of sticking up. It's kind of crazy that Dahlin's really our main offense generator right now as a player.
We're just like Vancouver.
Yeah. So I mean, let's change that up a little bit. Let's get some guys stepping up, like we mentioned. And then this next week is a huge test for the Sabres right now.
They have 4 games.
4 games against 4 very hard opponents right now. The Capitals, they're playing better than expected. A veteran team. They got some guys on there that've been there. Obviously, you have Ovi on the team. Then you also have the dreaded Tom Wilson as well. And they still have Oshie, right?
Oshie, TJ.
Yeah. So, I mean, they got another solid veteran team there. The Penguins, right after that. I wrote off the Penguins at the beginning of the season because they're old.
Yeah.
But they're still playing hard. They're still showing that they're a veteran team right now. The Devils, even though Jack Hughes is back, but they lost him for a little bit, but they're still generating offense. So, there's another hard team. And then you have the Rangers again, where the dreaded Rangers and their defense is this is another thing the Sabres are going to have to break through. What are you kind of looking for the team these next 4 games?
Again, these are 4 teams that are in they're the Metropolitan Division, but they're in the Eastern Conference. So like these are teams that we could be fighting for wild card spots for. I'm specifically looking at like Penguins and the Capitals, and actually the Devils are below them right now in the standings.
Really?
Yeah, there are far too many teams in the East right now with records above 500, because the Devils are 6th in their division and they are 8-7-1.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So like the wild card battle this year is probably going to be pretty crazy in the East. So I mean, this is a good test against all good teams. I just want to see a higher level of intensity through these 4 games. Like we talked about this during this podcast, like they didn't come out with any sort of urgency. We haven't seen them play like this game has mattered to them in quite a while.
Yeah.
I want to see it. It's probably what I said last week too. If I'm looking back, and they didn't show it.
Exactly.
But you know what? Those were against 2 West Coast teams. This matters. Show that it matters. Show up and play hockey like you could lose a playoff spot because you gave another team 2 points or 1 point.
Preach, man. That's.
Thank you.
I mean, took the words out of my mouth. You come out last week against the Jets and the Blackhawks. I mean, you lose to the Jets 3-2. I mean, the Jets have a decent. They're having a decent season. They're not having a great season, but I mean, you still have some solid players on that team with Hellebuck. But you didn't come out. You could have won that game if you would have played the 3rd period, all 3 periods. But you didn't come out with the intensity. Then you go against the Blackhawks, and the Blackhawks, honestly, yes, you have Connor Bedard, but they're not really a hockey team right now. They should have just wiped the floor with them, even without Tage Thompson. And they didn't do that. They won 3-2 by 1 goal, which that's not good. That's not what good hockey teams do. When you face these bad teams, you're supposed to destroy them. You're just supposed to stomp them back down below, back when the Sabres weren't that bad. But no, they didn't do that. They let this team keep up with them. They have to come with the intensity these next 4 games, because maybe I wouldn't say all 4 of them are playoff teams, because I don't. Maybe the Capitals and Penguins, does this energy last throughout the season? I don't really think so. But they're
at least,
playing good.
some of these teams are going to be in the conversation at the end of the year, right? These are teams. At least one of the 4 teams that we're facing is probably a wild card team.
Yeah, and these are teams that you're going to have to play against, and this is going to be. You have to play like this is a playoff atmosphere against these teams. It's crazy to say that in November,
right?
But
we're not getting intensity out of our team.
Not at all.
If that's what it takes, then have them prep for it like they think it's a playoff game. I just need to see them really come out with a spark, and not the guys who are playing for their life to stay on the team. Benson comes out with a spark every game, but he's an 18-year-old. He's not gonna move the chain that much. Like we were talking about with Connor Bedard, that team is Connor Bedard and then nobody else.
Yeah.
Benson isn't gonna move the chains that much. He's coming out with intensity every game, and he's looked good, and he looks like he belongs on the team. But the whole team needs that.
Yeah.
The whole team needs to play like their roster spot might be in trouble, that they might get sent back to the WHL, or that they might that they might not make the playoffs because this game matters.
Yeah. No, exactly. So Sabres, let's show up next 4 games. Let's play with the intensity. Let's play like you're going to be sent back down to the WHL.
Yeah, where you belong.
Actually, maybe you'll get sent back down to the ECHL, which is even worse than juniors hockey. So yeah, I mean, let's play with some heart out there. So all right, everybody, that's going to be the show for us tonight. Like we always say at the end of each show, definitely like and subscribe. Definitely check out the other shows on Nickel City Mafia. But the biggest thing too, like we said at the beginning of the show, we have Cardell here. Please scan the QR code to donate towards the Punt Foundation. Like we mentioned at the beginning, Cardell got to check out the Bills game this weekend up in the box. So that's definitely cool. Let's definitely make their holiday season even better for this family. So link in the description, scan the QR code. We'll see you next week, everybody.